house full of books. My parents went to college after they were discharged from the Army right after World War II. And also, it is Memorial Day. Shout out to our vets and military folk. Yeah, there we go. On this Memorial Day. My brothers and sisters were older and headed for college, so books and magazines were all over our house. We had everything from Unitarian Louisa May Alcott's Little Women to the edgy magazine Avant-Garde. I bought Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451 and the Martian Chronicles in high school, along with the works of writers Asimov, Heinlein, H.P. Lovecraft, and Martian Chronicles, along with the works of other sci-fi writers. While my trigonometry grades weren't great, I was reading constantly, sharing books and ideas with friends. Unknown to me, there was a cute guy in Minnesota reading the same books, who I would meet and marry in a few years while I was working, yes, at a local library. In my world, real men read books. From reading, I learned about relationships, far-off places, cultures, and in some books, about sex. While other parents might have believed the road to juvenile delinquency began by reading Mad Magazine, my parents were fairly open about letting us read whatever fell our way. Growing up in Orange County, I found my library vocation at the age of 19. I kicked around at part-time jobs as a high school student. I didn't have the talents of a food server, and boy, my hat is off and I admire those who can keep up in the fast pace of restaurant work. My longer stint as a student selling hippie posters at the swap meet was more successful, but when I started working as a college student at the Anaheim Public Library, I knew I was home. Nearly all my jobs since that time have been in libraries, and for 2 summers, I worked at a bookstore part-time. I moonlighted from the library to the bookstore. Books and libraries are built into my own and my extended family's DNA. My family has enjoyed the Huntington Beach libraries for over 40 years. There's so much happening around our libraries now, and a great deal of information, and a lot to give us perspective. To save time today, I brought a short bibliography and a flyer to hand out. How nerdy is that, right? I couldn't stand it. This service, Burning Bright, is named for the third and final chapter of Ray Bradbury's iconic book, Fahrenheit 451. This, the 60th anniversary edition, includes resources and reviews dating from the book's publication in 1953 to more current essays. The original story came out in 1951. The 1966 movie, directed by Francois Truffaut, is also mesmerizing. Set in the future, the firemen in the story do not put out fires, they search out and ignite books. Books are the enemy, placing unhappy ideas into people's minds. The government has found it is better to have its citizens' houses' walls covered with video screens, earbuds in their ears, to help crowd out unpleasant thoughts. In the story, the fireman Montag begins to read the books he's supposed to burn. There is a constant undercurrent of unease in this future world. Montag's wife is severely depressed under the forced cheerfulness she and her friends present to each other. Personal sadness, grief, ongoing wars are never acknowledged or spoken about. Books are outlawed, banned, and burned. A simple answer to the complexities of life. There are contemporary criticisms of Fahrenheit 451. After rereading it, I still appreciate its powerful message. It offers a prescient view of 2024 and developing attitudes towards reading and disturbing changes creeping into our society. Public and school libraries create the perfect catalyst for today's culture clash. Huntington Beach has been in the news quite a bit lately. Well, I used to think, look, it's Huntington Beach on the front page. Recently, my first thought is, now what? Our newly elected city council majority is not visibly aligned with progressive values. There was a vote. I checked with a lawyer about how I should word all of this. I did. I don't want to risk anybody's nonprofit status. There was a vote by the city council that removed the city's LGBTQ+ flag from flying. There was a mid-year election that instituted ID verification for voting. And then the libraries, and there's much more. There's been a growing trend after George Floyd's death in 2020 with some parents and community members challenging libraries and insisting on the removal of books that they deem inappropriate, mostly for children. We all know that most children either have phones, a friend, an older sibling, and can access any type of information on the internet. I've tried to better understand the mindset of folks who spend a great deal of time, energy, and I found out huge amounts of money to restrict information. I want to look into the mind of the firemen in the story Fahrenheit 451. Another recent council decision allows the council to decide, without a citizen's vote, if Huntington Beach Library should be outsourced to a private company, claimed to be a money-saving move. Currently, trained librarians select books using the American Library Association, or ALA, guidelines. Chillingly, an appointed citizens committee with no formal training will now have the final say on which children's books are considered inappropriate, then removed, moved to the adult section, or simply not purchased by the libraries. I went to see how the new arrangement of the children's section was affecting access. I looked for Judy Blume's book about menstruation, likely to be removed for content. Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. It was still in the children's section. When I went upstairs to the newly restricted children's book area, I found 3 books on the shelves, and I later found out that the other 40 that were immediately removed up there were all checked out. By whom I don't know. I'll leave that to your speculation. Any library I've worked in, whether elementary school, high school, academic, or public, has abided by the ALA Code of Ethics for Freedom and Information. Recently in Louisiana, House Bill 777 was proposed. This wording is directly from the proposed bill, which says and prohibits the use of public funds for transactions involving the American Library Association, prohibits a public official or employee from expending public funds to or with the American Library Association, prohibits a public employee from requesting or receiving reimbursement or remuneration in any form for continuing education or for attending a conference, if sponsored or conducted in whole or in part by the American Library Association. And here comes the very dramatic part. Proposed law provides that a person who violates proposed law shall be fined not more than $1,000 or be imprisoned with or without hard labor for not more than 2 years or both. Hard labor for ALA participation. Appallingly, right now, there are people who do believe this is the right thing to do and who wield real power. Many believe they are making an important moral stand when they remove Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, Percy Jackson books, and Not All Boys Are Blue from library shelves. Most progressives don't think the moral universe will collapse if a kid reads Everyone Poops. In his book, The Righteous Mind, Why Good People Are Divided by Politics and Religion, Jonathan Haidt talks about the moral divide that separates progressives and conservatives. Progressives usually put a much higher value on caring, compassion, fairness, and liberty. Those who are more conservative favor loyalty, authority, and sanctity. It is no coincidence that many of the books being banned are written by LGBTQIA+ and Black, Indigenous, and people of color, or BIPOC folks. Those who favor restricting book access are likely to be people who want to return to an America that never was, with loyalty and respect for authority, and they don't see a need for diverse voices. Some authors are doubling down and writing and publishing more books, even if they might not be purchased by publicly funded libraries. I saw recent heartening news that new independent bookstores are popping up and carrying these books, so that's kind of exciting. We can also look at history to help understand motivation. Dirk Roman's Christianity, Book Burning, and Censorship in Late Antiquity is a helpful guide to understanding religion-based opposition to certain books. Roman sorts out myth from fiction about book burning during the early Western Christian period. One surprise to me was Roman's conclusion that many ancient Greek, Latin, and Egyptian texts that were pre-Christian were not destroyed intentionally. They were simply overlooked, not copied during the major transition from papyrus scrolls, new technology, to the new codices that had turning pages made from animal skins. Rolling out a text on a scroll is a lot of work. Cross-referencing takes forever, right? It's hard to jump around in a text. In today's world, I find it difficult to use nonfiction electronic books. I love reading fiction on my book reader. There's more light available, no worries about storage space. Technology changes, and we can wonder if print books will be available in 50 years or cast aside like VHS and 8-track tapes. Where will they go? Will digital materials survive on our clouds of information storage? Between the years 300 and 500, historian Roman also tells us that older philosophical and historical ideas that were useful were adopted or quoted by early Christian church founders, monks, and copyists. They often saw no need to keep the originals. He does concur that most Western pre-Christian texts were discarded and intentionally or accidentally destroyed. One exciting piece of artificial intelligence news is that scientists are now able, or on the brink of being able, to look at charred scrolls and reconstruct them. Part of one severely burnt scroll from the ancient city of Herculaneum was damaged along with Pompeii in the year 79. It was recently reconstructed and published. Just this little fragment, but it's the first time. An entire ancient library, hopefully, awaits us. Roman carefully sifts through the evidence and histories about the major book burnings in late antiquity and points out the purification aspect of book burning. I did suggest Fire of Creation, which I don't think we're singing today, but the irony snuck up on me. I was like, oh man, maybe that one's not a good idea. Many of the early Christians were worried that written incantations and magic could be activated simply by reading the words off of these scrolls and sometimes books. If these incantations could activate in the physical world, then it was necessary to purge that power held within the book by burning it. Unfortunately, that belief in the purification and elimination of evil and Satan by fire extended to people during the Middle Ages and early modern time periods. Luckily for us, someone was paying attention during the destruction of ancient texts. A few things were hidden for us to find, like the Nag Hammadi library, with books that date from the 3rd to the 4th centuries. A mix of early Christian, Gnostic, and other religious texts. This library has completely changed our view of early Christianity in the scholarly world. It opens up a view into a rich and diverse spiritual world prior to the religious uniformity imposed in later centuries. This rigid belief system caused the eradication of not only diverse European voices, but of indigenous peoples around the globe, as Europe sailed the world during the Age of Exploration, beginning in the 1400s. As we sadly know today, we are still dealing with that legacy, a combination of military and religious zealotry. I can continue on with information and examples of suppression happening today, But we simply don't have time. I mean, we could talk about this and go through banned books for like 3 days. It'd be really fun. I do ask you to remember what books and libraries have meant to you. So if you could let's just take a minute and just shout out one or two of the books that have meant something to you, or say it to your neighbor. So, gosh, I don't know, Jane Eyre. Go ahead, just everybody at once. All right. Yeah.
The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Okay. Oh, I love that. Yeah. I found out that Good Night Moon was a banned book. I'm like, Good Night Moon. I'll shout that out as one of my books, Good Night Moon. I can continue on with information and examples of suppression happening today, but we simply don't have time. I ask each of you if the U.S. public library system is worth saving. If your answer is yes, I don't want to presume for Unitarian Universalists, right? If your answer is yes, then please look for ways to get involved to support books, diverse writers in our libraries. I see this support as part of our Unitarian Universalist commitment, stated in our principles, which call us to a free search for truth and to the support of the democratic process. If your answer is yes, yes to libraries, there are many next steps with different levels of time commitments. One advocate says to simply be informed and vote. Vote in the mid-year elections where stealth bills are passed. As you use, I suggest we weave this awareness and action into our current social justice work. Rona Henry, is Rona here today? No. I don't see Rona. Rona Henry and Welcoming Neighbors Home have created an active program around housing and houselessness here at Tapestry. There are intersections. As a director of religious education, I spent 2 days on the street with UU youth in the Faithful Fools program in San Francisco. On the street, we acted as people with no resources. The first day, I had to cheat and buy beverages to use the restroom in a fast food restaurant. The second day, I figured out that most folks experiencing houselessness went to the large public library to use the restroom and wash in the sink. How many youth use the public library as a safe place to study? While these are not good long-term solutions to underlying social problems, the libraries provide not only information, but sanctuary to all types of people of all ages. During my brief time as an elementary school librarian, I had several kids who were sheltering from scary situations out on the playground. They were rightfully scared. It was a rough neighborhood. We huddled together during the practice lockdowns in case of active shooters on campus. I interacted with each of the 1,000 kids registered at the school each week during classroom library time. I cried when I left. I love those kids. They were great. We can all stay up to date on what's happening in libraries. The director of ALA's Office for Intellectual Freedom tells us, this is a dangerous time for readers and the public servants who provide access to reading materials. Readers, particularly students, are losing access to critical information, and librarians and teachers are under attack for doing their jobs. My husband and I participate in Pride at the Pier, HB Banned Book Story, and I feel like our participation time is not like really heavy duty, where we just go when we can. But we go to Pride at the Pier, HB Banned Book Story Time, and the HB Library Facebook page. Those are informational places. I've attended city council meetings, written to council members, gone to library read-ins where we silently read in front of the library. I'm like, come on, let's get, they're like, no, just sit and read and don't talk. But. And I've joined marches that go from library, the little branch library on Main Street, to down to the pier, Huntington Beach Pier. I belong to a network of people who care, and this week I attended a Zoom workshop on the intersection of elementary school book restriction and LGBTQI+ issues. As a result of my emails to the City Council, I've been invited to talk to one more conservative council member which I still need to act on. With any social justice action, there is always more than one person can do. For me, the option to do nothing in my community is not an option. The silver lining is meeting all the wonderful people working to keep information accessible. Holding our officials accountable in the coming months is going to take effort. My ask is to please put this issue on your radar and just help where you can. Amazing, great breaking news, California Governor Gavin Newsom signed a bill into law Monday prohibiting school boards across the state from banning books, instructional materials, or curricula categorized as inclusive or diverse. It will be exciting to see how this legislation plays out in Orange County. Local organizer Kathy Ryder sent these words for me to share today with you. She has created a petition regarding the formation of the review committee for Huntington Beach libraries. She says, this committee could take away the access to required academic reading for middle and high school students. The criteria to purchase books and material is based on undefined and unclear community standards. Committee members are not required to have any training or expertise in reviewing books. And she closes with, parents should decide what their own children should read, not what other children should read. So myself, Reverend Lee Marie Sanchez, Reverend Judy Tomlinson, and our current UU ministry candidate all live in Huntington Beach, and we are part of this effort, along with many, many other people. If we get discouraged in this struggle, Ray Bradbury reminds us in Fahrenheit 451, and I'm going to echo what Scott said. Books were only one receptacle where we stored a lot of things we were afraid we might forget. There is nothing magical in them at all. The magic is only in what the books say, how they stitch together the patches of the universe into one garment for us. May we all go shining in wisdom and in peace. Blessed be.